Hi, welcome. As a second blog posting that follows the job description of a scribe, I'd like to follow up with some sequential presentation on sources that we have for the Greek New Testament, and these will be short. So let's get started here. Today we're going to be talking about the papyri. Now, the papyrus reed is a reed that grew along the river Nile. When my wife and I were living in Virginia Beach, we raised a couple of papyrus plants, but obviously during the wintertime they froze. So that was all for that season. So, with these papyrus plants, they would be cut in cross sections. And then you would have a laying out of various papyrus stems that are laid out with a horizontal reeds, and then they would be glued together over the vertical reeds. And then they would be pressed together into one fabric. Now, the normal length was somewhere between 30 and 35 feet in rolled form. And this would explain, for instance, why Luke at the end we have 24 chapters, and really what happens is that Luke has run out of writing material. So the book of Acts begins with the words, "The first account I composed, O Theophilus, about all that Jesus began to do and to teach." And then he starts off with another scroll. Now, some also appeared in what are called codex form, C-O-D-E-X, and this is where you would have papyri that would be cut and then they would be bound off to the left, similar to books today. And these were used between the 1st and the 3rd century. Now, all of the papyri were written in capitals. They're sometimes called uncials, and this comes from the Latin word uncia, that means 1 inch. So all capital letters 1 inch high. And there were no spaces in between words, no verse numbers, and no chapter divisions. And they were written using some kind of stylus and an ink composed of some gum, soot, and water together. So let's take a look here at some modern day weaving of papyrus in Rwanda. Here you'll see a couple of women working with the papyrus reeds, and they're weaving them back and forth together. So here's an example of one of the papyrus. This is a famous document called the Chester Beatty Papyrus. And you'll see the rough edges, top and bottom, and certainly the print is not legible. And let me show you one other slide here. This is called the John Rylands Papyrus, and it's known as P52. The P stands for papyrus, and this is just a couple verses from the Gospel of John. Now, I need to say this, that with 76 papyri, that this does not mean a complete New Testament. Sometimes it's a few verses, sometimes it's a couple chapters or one book, but certainly not an entire New Testament document. So this is the first part for our sources of the Greek New Testament. Thanks.